All right, so welcome back, everyone. We're diving deep today, like way deep, down into the itty-bitty world of our cells.
Ooh, microscopic level.
Exactly. We're talking cellular energy. You know how we need energy for, well, everything.
Right.
Yeah, well, turns out it all starts with these little powerhouses called, get this, mitochondria.
The powerhouses of the cell.
That's the one. And we found this awesome YouTube video all about how they actually work. I think you're going to find it pretty fascinating.
Oh, definitely. Mitochondria are pretty amazing. They're like these mini factories constantly churning out energy from, the food we eat, carbs, fats, the whole deal.
And they're like super efficient about it too. I mean, this video broke down like three main processes, right? They're
Mm.
called pyruvate dehydrogenase, the TCA cycle, and, oh, this one's a mouthful, fatty acid beta oxidation.
Those are the big ones.
Yeah, but I'm not going to lie, those names are a bit intimidating, even for me.
Well, they can be a bit jargony, that's for sure.
So can you break them down for us? Like, in simple terms, what's actually happening in these processes?
Totally. So these three, they're all part of what we call catabolism. Basically, it's the breakdown of complex molecules in our food to release energy the cells can use. So it's like, think of your cells as these little factories, and each of these processes is a different department, all working together.
Okay, so like a well-oiled machine.
Exactly. Each department's got its own job to do, breaking down the fuel in a specific way.
Makes sense. And the video mentioned some like crazy numbers about how much energy each of these departments or processes can make.
Oh, yeah, it is pretty wild.
Like they said, breaking down pyruvate, which comes from glucose, can yield something like 30 ATP molecules.
30.
And then beta oxidation of this fatty acid, palmitate, can reduce a whopping 129 ATP.
It's incredible, isn't it? How efficient they are.
It is. But hold on, ATP, what exactly is that?
Right, right. So ATP stands for adenosine triphosphate. It's basically like the energy currency of our cells. So, like we use cash to buy things. ATP is what our cells use to power all their activities, everything from like muscle contractions to nerve impulses, even just keeping our organs functioning, it all runs on ATP.
Wow, so our bodies are like constantly churning out ATP, like little cash machines.
Uh-huh, yeah, pretty much.
Kind of mind-blowing when you think about it. But going back to the factory analogy, right?
Hmm.
Where exactly are these departments, these processes happening? Are they all inside the mitochondria?
That's a great question. It's not quite so simple. See, pyruvate, which comes from the breakdown of glucose, actually starts its journey outside the mitochondria through a process called glycolysis, but then it gets transported inside to be further processed by pyruvate dehydrogenase and the TCA cycle.
Hold on, so it starts outside, then moves inside. Why not just do it all in one place?
Well, think about it like this. Glycolysis, the initial breakdown of glucose, it's a bit like a quick and dirty energy grab. It doesn't actually need oxygen to work, so it can happen super fast in the cytoplasm, which is outside the mitochondria.
I see, so it's like a quick energy boost.
Yeah, exactly. But to really squeeze all the energy out of that glucose, we need the powerhouse team, pyruvate dehydrogenase and the TCA cycle. And those guys, they work best with oxygen, which is abundant inside the mitochondria. So it's all about efficiency in the end.
Wow, so it's like a two-step process with each step happening in the optimal environment. Pretty neat.
Right, our bodies are pretty incredible.
Totally agree. So to recap, we've got these tiny powerhouses, the mitochondria, churning out energy from the food we eat using these super intricate multi-step processes.
Uh,
And different processes can yield different amounts of energy depending on what fuels we're using.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, what does that tell us about like our diet and our energy levels?
Well, that's the question, isn't it? If fat can give us so much more ATP than sugar, why even bother with carbs, right?
Right.
Well, it's not quite that black and white. Our bodies are amazingly adaptable. Different cells have different energy needs, and different fuels might be better suited for different tasks.
Huh. I never thought about it like that.
It's all about balance, really. Like some cells might prefer glucose, others might thrive on fatty acids.
That's fascinating. So, like, the next time I grab a snack, I'll be thinking about all these tiny mitochondria working away in my cells, trying to get the most energy they can out of it.
Haha, yeah, give them a good fuel source.
Definitely. It really puts things into perspective, like how much is going on inside us at every moment.
It really does, and it raises a lot of interesting questions, too, like what are the implications of these different energy yields for our overall health and well-being? Something to ponder.
Definitely. And it's something we can all think about, as we go about our day and make choices about what we eat and how we fuel our bodies. So thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the world of cellular energy. Until next time.
See you then.
Bye. Welcome back, everyone, to another deep dive. Today, we're diving into the world of cellular energy.
Ooh.
Like how our bodies take all that food we eat
Uh-huh.
and turn it into fuel.
Yes.
We've got this amazing YouTube video, Metabolism Made Easy,
Mm-hmm.
and it's going to help us understand. It's all about a molecule called Acetyl CoA.
Acetyl CoA, yes.
You may have never heard of it, but
Right.
trust me, it's kind of a rock star in the whole energy production process.
It is. It is.
So it's like tracing the ingredients of our favorite dish,
Yeah,
right?
I like that analogy.
We're going to see where Acetyl CoA comes from. So
Oh.
what are its sources?
Yeah, that's a great way to think about it.
And kind of unpack how our bodies make energy from all sorts of different stuff.
Because it's not just from one thing.
Right,
It's
exactly.
from all sorts of different places.
It's pretty awesome.
Acetyl CoA is super central to metabolism. It's
Okay.
like the central hub
Oh, I see.
that everything kind of goes through.
Okay.
So, if you imagine like Grand Central Station,
Grand Central Station.
all these trains are coming in from different places, right?
Uh-huh.
And Acetyl CoA is kind of the station master.
It's directing the track.
It's directing everything.
Okay, wow.
It's just saying, okay, you go to the energy production pathway.
Yeah.
You go to this pathway.
Amazing.
It's really cool.
Okay, so this video lays out these four main sources,
Mm-hmm.
right, for Acetyl CoA.
Yeah.
So the first one, I think most people are pretty familiar with, pyruvate.
Pyruvate.
That sounds familiar, right?
Oh, yeah, that's the...
Isn't that from like glucose or sugar?
Yeah, so that's from the breakdown of carbohydrates.
Okay.
So like when you eat a bagel or pasta.
Yes. The carbs, yeah, your body breaks that down into glucose,
Right.
which is the simple sugar,
Mm-hmm.
and then that glucose is converted into pyruvate.
Uh-huh.
And that's the entry point
Okay.
to the Acetyl CoA hub.
So that's like the classic energy pathway, right?
Exactly. That's the one we kind of all learn about. Yeah.
The basic one.
But what about when we're not just pounding carbs?
Yeah. What happens when you're not?
What else can our bodies use?
Exactly.
Give me the good stuff.
This is where it gets really cool.
Okay.
Because our bodies are so resourceful.
Okay.
They can actually use amino acids.
Or fuel?
Hold on. Amino acids, that's protein.
That's
right?
protein, exactly.
Whoa.
So when
Oh.
you're low on carbs, your body can actually break down protein.
Okay.
And certain amino acids can be converted to
Yeah.
Acetyl CoA.
Mind-blowing. So the stuff that builds our muscles
Yes.
can also be burned for energy?
Exactly.
Okay, I'm starting to see how adaptable our bodies really are.
It's amazing,
It's
right?
right.
If you think about it, it's like this intricate web of pathways.
It's like a backup generator.
Yeah, exactly. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, we don't have this, let's use this.
That's so cool.
It's incredible.
Okay, so we've got carbs, we've got protein.
What's next?
All right, this one has a kind of a complicated name.
Okay.
It's called beta oxidation of fatty acids.
Ooh, beta oxidation.
Yeah, but don't let that scare you.
Okay, fatty acids, though, that's fat. Right?
That's fat.
Okay.
So this is how our bodies break down fat
Uh-huh.
to get energy.
So this is like the fat-burning pathway
Exactly.
that everyone's always talking about.
This is the one that gets a lot of attention.
Yeah.
With things like ketogenic diets and stuff, where
Right.
you're really trying to push your body to use fat for fuel.
So when people talk about being in fat-burning mode,
Mhm.
they're talking about beta oxidation.
They're talking about this pathway that's producing acetyl CoA.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got carbs, we've got protein, we've got fat.
Mm-hmm.
Any other surprises in store for us?
There's one more, and it's a fun one.
Okay. Alcohol.
Wait, really? Alcohol can turn into energy.
Yeah.
Like, my Friday night glass of wine is actually fueling my cells.
It can contribute to Acetyl CoA, yeah. How does that work?
So there's a two-step process.
Okay.
First, alcohol is converted into something called acetaldehyde.
Acetaldehyde.
And then that's converted into acetate.
Acetate.
And acetate can then become
Acetyl CoA.
acetyl CoA.
That's amazing. I never would have thought.
It's pretty cool, right?
It really is. So we've got these four main sources
For main sources.
for this amazing molecule, Acetyl CoA.
The central hub.
It's like a grand central station
Yeah.
for our cellular energy.
Exactly.
And it just highlights how incredibly adaptable our bodies are.
Yeah, and it makes you wonder, what happens next?
Right. We've seen where Acetyl CoA comes from.
Right. Where does it go?
Where does it go? What does it do?
What does it do? How does it actually
Turn into energy.
turn into energy?
That's a great question.
Yeah, we've just looked at the ingredients.
Mhm.
Now we got to see how they're used.
Right. We got to get into the kitchen and see the chef in action.
Yeah.
So if you want to find out what happens next with our friend Acetyl CoA, head over to YouTube and check out the full video, Metabolism Made Easy.
Great video.
It's really, really good
That
stuff.
explains it so well.
Thanks for joining us for another good dive. And keep those brains buzzing. All right, so today we are diving deep into the TCA cycle, right? This is the energy
Yes.
production powerhouse that's happening inside all of our cells.
Exactly.
And we're going to be using this YouTube video that I found called Metabolism Made Easy. Um, it has some good visuals and clear explanation of the whole process.
Nice.
And we're going to be focusing on the mitochondria, which is the powerhouse of the cell. So we're going like microscopic. We're going into the cell,
Yeah, yeah. Into the cell, into the
into
mitochondria.
your mitochondria.
Absolutely. So, when we talk about the TCA cycle, it's often referred to as, this intricate engine, just churning away inside the mitochondria. And it's fascinating because it's this process that really drives the production of energy that fuels, every single thing that we do.
I always hear it called the Krebs cycle.
Right.
Isn't that right?
Yeah,
You
exactly.
see it.
It's also known as the citric acid cycle or the tricarboxylic acid cycle.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, yeah. But, regardless of what you call it, the core function is the same.
Right.
It's all about generating energy from, the foods that we consume.
So we're inside the mitochondria now, and that's where this is all happening. Why is the location, like, why does it happen in there? What's so special about the mitochondria?
Yeah, that's a great question. The location is absolutely crucial because the mitochondria is structured in a way that's just perfectly designed for energy production.
Okay.
You can almost think of it as like a specialized factory.
Right.
And it has this double membrane, right?
Right.
And it's within that inner membrane where the magic of the TCA cycle really takes place. And this compartmentalization is key because it allows for this incredibly efficient capture and utilization of energy.
So how does it work? I mean, I know we're talking about like a cellular engine, but like, how does it actually, what is the fuel?
Right. So the primary fuel for the TCA cycle is a molecule called acetyl CoA. And you can think of acetyl CoA as this delivery truck, right? It's carrying energy-rich cargo that is derived from the breakdown of, the carbohydrates, the fats, and the protein that we need. And it enters the cycle, and through a series of steps, it gets oxidized, which essentially means it releases energy along the way.
So when you say oxidized, what do you mean by that?
Yeah, so in simple term, oxidation just means the loss of electrons.
Got it.
So as the acetyl CoA moves through the cycle, it's stripped of its electrons.
Okay.
And these electrons, they're picked up by these special molecules called electron carriers, like NAD plus and Fa.
So the electron carriers, they're like these little like shuttles
Exactly.
that are just taking the energy somewhere else.
Yeah, you can think of them as like these little energy shuttles. They're zizzing around, grabbing electrons and taking them to this other part of mitochondria called the electron transport chain.
Okay.
And the electron transport chain, that's like this, conveyor belt that uses the energy from those electrons to create this proton gradient,
Right.
which is basically a difference in electrical charge. And that gradient then drives the production of ATP,
Right.
which is, as you know, the energy currency of our cells.
So the TCA cycle itself isn't producing the ATP.
Right.
It's like the setup.
Exactly. It's setting the stage.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a crucial setup process.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's providing those energized electron carriers, for that final step in ATP production.
So how many enzymes are involved in this cycle?
Yeah, so there are a number of key players in this process, and these are enzymes. So you can kind of think of enzymes like these specialized workers in this factory, right?
Right.
And each of them is responsible for catalyzing a specific step in the cycle. So for instance, we have citrate synthase, aconitase, isocitrate dehydrogenase, and several others.
Wow. So just to be clear, there's 3 that produce the NADH.
That's right, yeah.
And I think I wrote down their names. It was isocitrate dehydrogenase, alpha-ketoglutarate dehydrogenase, and malate dehydrogenase.
You got it.
Okay.
Yes, and remember, NADH is one of our, star electron carriers, right? It's shuttling those precious electrons to the electron transport chain.
So what about the other 2 enzymes?
Right, so we also have succinyl CoA synthetase, which produces GTP. And GTP, that's a molecule that's very similar to ATP in terms of carrying energy. And then we've got succinate dehydrogenase, which produces FADH2, another important electron carrier.
So at the end of all of this, how much ATP do we get out of this from oxidizing that one molecule of acetyl CoA?
Drum roll, please. It's 12 ATP.
Wow, 12 ATP.
12 ATP, yeah?
That's a lot.
It is. And keep in mind, this is happening in every single cell in your body, constantly, day and night. Trillions of cells all working together, each with its own TCA cycle, just humming away, generating the energy needed for everything you do, from, thinking to breathing to running a marathon.
Wow, that's incredible. So yeah, we've seen how, the food that we eat is turned into fuel. And then this intricate cycle of oxidation and energy production just creates so much energy for our bodies.
Yeah, and it really highlights why we need to eat a balanced diet.
Right.
We're providing the raw materials
Yeah.
for that TCA cycle to keep those tiny energy shuttles running.
It also kind of highlights how important this cycle is for our health.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
And, what happens if there are disruptions to the cycle?
Right, yeah. Disruptions to the cycle, they can be caused by various factors, whether it's genetic factors or lifestyle choices. But these disruptions can have a significant impact on energy production, and that can lead to a whole host of health issues.
So this has been an amazing deep dive. We've learned so much about the TCA cycle. And just to summarize, we've seen how it acts like a microscopic engine, constantly churning away inside our cells.
Yeah.
It's fueled by the food that we eat. And it's producing the energy that powers, basically our entire existence.
And as you go about your day, just take a moment to think about and appreciate the incredible complexity of your own body. Think about, the trillions of TCA cycles that are happening right now, a symphony of energy production keeping you alive and functioning. It's pretty remarkable.
That is pretty remarkable. And to all of our listeners, if this deep dive has piqued your interest, here's a question for you. What happens when this, incredibly finely tuned cycle, goes awry? What are the implications for our health and well-being? Keep exploring deep divers. There's always more to discover.
Absolutely.
All right, until next time.
Here.
All right, so ever wonder how your body turns that late-night pizza into energy?
Yeah.
Well, strap in, because today we're going to be unlocking the secrets of fat metabolism.
Okay.
We're diving deep into a YouTube video.
Okay.
It's called Fatty Acid Beta Oxidation, the major catabolic pathway of fat. It's on the Metabolism Made Easy channel. So you want to know more about how your body actually uses fat for energy.
Right.
So this video, it's going to be our starting point for this deep dive. We're going to be exploring something called beta oxidation.
Okay.
It's basically the process of breaking down fatty acids to fuel your body.
Yeah. What I think is so fascinating is how efficient this whole process is.
Yeah.
The video points out that 90%
90%
of the fat you eat and the fat your body stores
Wow.
is in the form of these things called triglycerides.
Okay, so 90% triglycerides, that's a big deal.
Huge.
But if triglycerides are like the storage units,
Right.
what exactly is beta oxidation actually breaking down inside of them?
You got it. It's not the triglycerides themselves directly.
Okay.
What beta oxidation does is it focuses on breaking down the fatty acids
Right.
that are kind of packaged up inside those triglycerides.
Okay. So breaking down the triglyceride releases the fatty acids for this whole process to work.
Yep.
That makes sense.
And that's really the connection between what you eat and how your body stores and uses energy,
Right.
That connection becomes really clear.
Yeah, that connection is fascinating.
It is.
But what happens if we eat more fat than our bodies can use right away?
Yeah.
Where's it all go?
So any extra energy, whether it comes from fat or carbs or even protein,
Right.
can be turned into triglycerides.
Okay.
And then stored for later. It's like your body is saving up
Okay.
for a rainy day.
Like a fat savings account.
Haha, exactly.
Oh, like that.
And when you need that energy, beta oxidation kicks in,
Right.
converts those fat savings
Yep.
into usable energy currency.
Okay, so tell me more about this energy currency.
Yeah.
The video mentions the TCA cycle.
Right.
What is that?
Think of the TCA cycle as like the central hub
Okay.
of energy production in your cells.
Got it.
And it's not all about fat either. The TCA cycle is it's like a metabolic intersection.
Okay.
It handles byproducts from different sources.
Okay.
Like carbs and protein.
Got it.
But when it comes to beta oxidation,
Yeah.
the breakdown of those fatty acids, it produces a molecule.
Okay.
It's called acetyl CoA.
Acetyl CoA. That sounds familiar.
It's like the currency of energy
Got it.
in the cell.
Okay.
And, beta oxidation is kind of like converting your fat savings
Uh-huh.
into this currency
Right.
that can then be spent in the TCA cycle
Okay.
to power all your activities. So
Yeah.
through this series of reactions,
Okay.
the TCA cycle uses that acetyl CoA,
Right.
which came from those broken down fatty acids,
Okay.
to generate even more energy.
So basically that pizza we eat, it gets broken down
Exactly.
into these tiny little energy packets
Yeah.
that fuel our bodies
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
multiple ways.
Exactly.
Pretty amazing.
It's incredible, right? It
Yeah.
just it highlights how interconnected all of our metabolic processes are.
Right.
But this brings up a really interesting question.
Okay.
If almost all our fat intake and storage
Right.
is in the form of triglycerides,
Yeah.
how does our body actually decide
Yeah.
when to break them down
Hmm.
for energy?
Yeah. What signals this whole process to start?
Right.
It can't be happening all the time, right?
Exactly.
It's got to be some kind of control mechanism.
Yeah, definitely.
So what are the things that influence whether the body decides to use fat or carbohydrates for energy? That seems like a whole other deep dive waiting to happen.
Definitely does.
Yeah.
Lots to explore there.
Absolutely.
Have
For
to.
sure. All right, everybody, welcome back for another deep dive. Today, we're going to get into some really cool stuff about how our bodies burn fat.
Yeah, we're going to get into the nitty-gritty today.
Exactly, the real nitty-gritty. We're going to be using this YouTube video as our source material today. It's called Exercise, Epinephrine, and Lipolysis of Stored Fat.
Catchy title.
It is, and it's from the channel Metabolism Made Easy, which, I love.
Yeah, great channel.
So we're going to be exploring basically how our bodies unlock stored fat for energy. And this video, it really gets into the weeds, which is what we love to do, deep dives.
For sure. I mean, we all know that exercise helps us burn fat, but I think a lot of people don't really understand the mechanisms behind it.
Totally. And that's what we're here for today. We're going to break it down step by step.
Absolutely. So I guess the first thing to understand is the role of epinephrine.
Okay, epinephrine, also known as adrenaline, right?
That's right.
So most people think of epinephrine like fight or flight, right? You see a bear, your heart starts racing.
Exactly. It's that rush of energy that helps you respond to a threat.
Right. So what does that have to do with burning fat?
Well, it turns out that epinephrine plays a key role in how our bodies utilize energy. And this includes both exercise and fasting. Both of those things can actually cause epinephrine levels to spike.
Oh, interesting. So it's not just the fight or flight response.
Nope, it's much broader than that. When epinephrine levels increase, it triggers a cascade of events that ultimately leads to the breakdown of stored fat.
Okay, hold on. I'm already getting lost. Breakdown of stored fat, what does that even mean?
Well, basically, we have these fat cells throughout our body, adipose tissue, as it's called.
Right, the stuff we're always trying to get rid of.
Well, yes and no. Fat is actually an essential energy source for our bodies.
Okay, that's true. I mean, we need some fat to survive, right?
Exactly. And when we exercise or fast, our bodies need to access that stored energy.
So that's where the epinephrine comes in.
Right. So think of it like this. You have these little storage units all over your body, the fat cells. Each of them is full of energy just waiting to be used.
Okay, I like that analogy.
And epinephrine is like the key that unlocks those storage units.
Aha, so epinephrine is like a key. But how does it actually, unlock the fat?
Good question. So epinephrine, it binds to a specific receptor on the surface of the fat cell.
Receptor. Okay, like a lock on the storage unit door.
Exactly. It's called the beta-adrenergic receptor.
Beta-adrenergic receptor. Got it.
And when epinephrine binds to that receptor, it sets off a chain reaction inside the fat cell.
Okay, so it's like sticking the key in the lock and turning it. Then what happens inside the storage unit?
Well, think of it as a domino effect. Once epinephrine binds to that receptor, it leads to an increase in something called cyclic AMP, or CAMP for short.
CAMP. Okay, and what does CAMP do?
CAMP activates another enzyme called protein kinase A.
Protein kinase A, another big word.
I know, but bear with me, it'll make sense in a second. Protein kinase A then activates, or switches on, you could say, yet another enzyme called hormone-sensitive lipase.
Hormone-sensitive lipase. So we've got a whole cascade of events happening here.
We view, and this hormone-sensitive lipase, or HSL as it's often called, is the real star of the show.
Okay, HSL, the star. What makes it so special?
HSL is the enzyme that actually breaks down stored fat, which is called triacylglycerol.
Triacylglycerol. Okay, that's the stuff that's actually stored in the fat cells, right?
Yes, exactly. HSL breaks that down into smaller molecules, fatty acids and glycerol, and releases them into the bloodstream.
So it's like once HSL gets activated, it goes into the storage unit and starts chopping up all the big pieces of furniture so they can be carried out the door.
That's a great analogy. You got it.
So these smaller pieces, the fatty acids and glycerol, they're the ones that our bodies can actually use for energy.
Precisely. They get transported to different tissues in the body, like your muscles, where they can be burned for energy.
So that's why after a good workout, even though I'm tired, I also feel kind of energized.
Exactly. Your body has just unlocked and released all these energy-rich molecules into your bloodstream. It's like a fresh supply of fuel.
Wow, that's amazing. I never really thought about it that way before.
It's pretty incredible when you think about all the complex processes that are happening in our bodies all the time.
It really is. So let me ask you this. If epinephrine is this key to unlocking fat stores, does that mean there might be other ways to activate this whole process? Besides exercise or fasting, I mean.
That's a very good question. And to be honest, that's something that researchers are actively exploring. I mean, the potential to influence these pathways to essentially find other keys to unlock those fat stores is a really fascinating area of study.
It really is. It makes you wonder if there are ways to hack our metabolism or something.
Well, I wouldn't use the word hack, but yes, there's a lot of research being done on how we can manipulate these processes to improve our health and well-being.
That's really interesting to think about. Well, I don't know about you, but I'm feeling a lot more knowledgeable about how my body burns fat now.
Me too. It's always amazing to delve into these complex biological mechanisms.
It is. All right, so for our listeners out there, if you've ever felt that rush of energy after a workout or even after a period of fasting, now you know the science behind it.
And who knows, maybe someday we'll be able to tap into those fat stores even without breaking a sweat.
The future of fitness. Thanks for joining us on another deep dive.
Thanks for having me.
We'll see you next time.
See you then.
Ever feel like some foods, I don't know, just give you a quick burst of energy and then others, kind of keep you going for hours?
Yeah, totally.
Well, today we're diving deep, really deep into the science behind that.
Ooh, sounds interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, we're going to explore how different nutrients actually power our bodies.
Okay.
And we're basing this deep dive on a YouTube video from Metabolism Made Easy.
Ah, interesting.
So get ready to unlock the secrets of, well, some pretty important stuff. Fatty acids, ketone bodies, glucose, and amino acids.
These are like the building blocks of, well, everything, right?
Yeah, it's crazy, right? I mean, we talk about calories all the time.
All the time.
But we don't really break it down like this.
Right, right.
And this deep dive, based on this video, it really breaks down the energy output of each of those individual nutrients.
Gives you a whole new perspective on food, really. Food is fuel.
It really does. It's like, wow, this is what I'm putting in my body.
Yeah.
And you know what? Something that I found super surprising, really, really surprising watching this video was that fatty acids are like the energy champions.
Interesting.
I know. I always thought it was carbs.
Yeah, carbs are always, they get a lot of attention.
They do.
Especially when it comes to energy.
Right, right. But this video says that fatty acids produce, wait for it, 8.06 ATP.
Okay, that's a lot, yeah.
That's a lot. What is ATP?
ATP is like the, I guess you could call it the energy currency that our cells use.
Oh.
Yeah, it's like, you got dollars and cents, cells have ATP.
Wow, that's a great way to put it.
So why are fatty acids so good at it? Well, it's their chemical structure, you see.
Oh, interesting.
They're full of these carbon-hydrogen bonds, and when those bonds break down, it's like, boom, a ton of energy is released.
So it's like they have more energy to give.
Exactly. They're like a super efficient fuel source for the body.
Okay, so that's why, maybe you feel more energetic after a meal with good fats.
Exactly, you got it. And you might feel more satiated, too.
That's interesting.
It's like your body's really getting its money's worth, It's getting
Yeah.
more bang for its buck with those fatty acids.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
But the video also mentioned, and I thought this was really interesting, that the ATP output, well, it varies, the different between each of the nutrients.
Right, right.
So it's not as simple as just saying, fatty acids are the best and everything else. Well, it's just kind of whatever.
Yeah, you can't just crown fatty acids the ultimate winner and ignore everyone else.
Right.
Because it's more nuanced than that, right?
Right.
Each nutrient, well, it kind of takes a different path. It goes through its own unique breakdown process, kind of like I guess you could say it's like taking different routes on a map to get to the same destination.
Oh, okay, okay.
So that's why they end up producing different amounts of energy.
Okay, so each has their own journey to energy production.
Exactly, exactly.
Interesting. What about the other, we talk about the fatty acids, but what about the other, I guess, key players here?
Yeah, yeah.
Like those ketone bodies, glucose and amino acids?
Oh, those are great ones.
Yeah, those are fascinating, right?
Ketone bodies are really fascinating. They're kind of like, you know, they come in when your body's running low on glucose.
Okay.
So think like fasting, or if you're on a very low-carb diet.
Right, right.
Ketone bodies are there to provide that backup fuel source.
So it's like our body has backup systems.
It does, it does.
That's crazy.
And they're especially important for the brain. The brain needs a constant supply of energy.
The brain's very important.
Very important, yes.
So are ketone bodies kind of like the backup generators?
Yes. Like when the main power goes out, the backup generator kicks in.
Perfect, perfect.
That's a great
So
analogy.
you got our ketone bodies, our backup generator.
Yes.
And then, of course, glucose. I mean, everybody's talking about glucose.
Glucose is like the, I guess the star of the show in many ways.
It's like the main power source, right?
It's the go-to energy source for a lot of our cells, especially when you need energy quickly.
Okay.
Like when you're sprinting or you need a quick burst of mental focus, that's glucose coming into play.
Interesting, interesting. And then there's, of course, the amino acids.
Ah, yes. Amino acids.
And I always think about amino acids as like the building blocks of protein.
They are, absolutely. That's their primary role.
Right.
But, they're not just one-trick ponies.
Oh, they have other jobs too.
They do, they do. If needed, they can also be used for energy.
So it's like they're multi-purpose.
Exactly. They're like, I guess you could say they're like those multi-purpose tools you have in your tea box. The ones you use for everything.
Yeah, like a Swiss Army knife.
There you go. They're essential for building and repairing tissues, which is their main gig.
Right.
But in a pinch, you can also use them for energy.
Wow.
It's like the body is so efficient, right?
It's incredible how our bodies can actually utilize all these different nutrients, in such specific ways.
I know. It's mind-blowing.
It's amazing. So to summarize, it seems like we've learned, that fatty acids, those are like the energy champions.
Yes.
But all of the nutrients, they really have their own special role, or, a unique role to play.
Absolutely. And that actually brings up a really crucial question.
Oh,
If fatty acids are so efficient, why do we even need those other nutrients? Why not just load up on fats?
whoa, whoa, whoa. Are you saying that we should like ditch carbs completely and just go like full on keto?
No, not necessarily. But it is a thought-provoking question, isn't it?
It is. I mean, there has to be a reason why our bodies use these other nutrients too.
You're absolutely right. Our bodies are complex, amazingly complex.
Way more complex than I think we give them credit for.
I agree. And while fats, yeah, they are a fantastic energy source, we really do need a balance of all those nutrients for our bodies to function at their best.
Okay, that makes sense.
Carbohydrates, those play really important roles in, various processes in the body.
Right.
And amino acids, well, like we said, they're crucial for building and repairing those tissues. So it's all about finding that balance.
Balance is always key, right?
Always, always.
Wow, this deep dive has really given us so much to think about.
It really has.
It's incredible how all these, tiny little molecules are fueling everything we do.
I know, right? It really does highlight how important it is to understand what we put into our bodies.
Yeah.
And how it affects everything, our energy levels, our overall health.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for joining us today for this deep dive into the really fascinating world of nutrient metabolism. We've just, scratched the surface here.
Just the tip of the iceberg.
But, hopefully it sparked your curiosity.
Yeah, go out there and learn more.
Go out there, explore, maybe watch that video we talked about Metabolism Made Easy.
There's so much more to learn.
Thanks again.